the world's worst kept secret, because I, with the loudest voice, did not choose to keep it a secret, was to let you know that the reason that Strickland and Duplessis was rushed to the marketplace is because the winner is going to take on Izzy at UFC 300. Now, that isn't done, which I've also made very clear, but that is the option that is attempting to be preserved the most. And Izzy has spoke on this, and Izzy has not given us a commitment, but he's come close. And one thing that I do prefer is that Izzy go first. I would prefer that Izzy, prior to Strickland versus Duplessis, goes first and says, I'll be waiting for you in April at 300. And the reason is because while I know that's the match that they're trying to procure, if Izzy goes second, which means we've established who the winner is, and then Izzy makes his choice, it gives the perception that it's a favorable matchup in Izzy's opinion. I will agree to it only after I know specifically who it is, and that's just not how Izzy operates. That is no part of the Israel Adesanya story. He takes on anybody. He takes on the hardest guys, and so I would just prefer that he went first. It would also take a little bit of negotiating away if he moved in that manner. Now, where that becomes interesting to me is, what do we do with Chimaev? And everything can be smoothed out. Everything can be smoothed out if we can get the commitment from Adesanya and we can get the match between Duplessis and Strickland done prior to Chimaev's cast coming off of his hand. Like, as long as that hand still has a cast on it, when we roll into the press conference and the media the following week, it is no problem to yank that number one contendership away. But it's a matter of for how long. For how long can I keep it away from him? If he's not the guy, is he able to face the eventual guy? When the cast comes off, does Chimaev roll right in? Because at that point, now you're talking about kicking the can damn near a year from the time he had his last fight. Understand that was October 22nd of this year, 2023. So if he's got to wait you're pushing him until that deep late summer, early winter, and it's a year-long wait. And it just seems to be the constant situation that we've found ourselves in 2023. And 2023 is the only year that I have personally witnessed where we're having number one contenders and number one contenders stacking up on each other. I mean, that would be a fine example. Duplessis was the number one contender. Then all of a sudden, Chimaev and Kamaru Usman are going to fight for number one contendership at the very weight class that has a number one contender named Duplessis. So then we actually get that established between Kamaru Usman and Chimaev. And I got to tell you, I don't love it. I know I'm not going to get my way on this. I realize you can't run a business this way. I do get that. But I don't love the idea that Chimaev and Kamaru could fight. It would be that close. Chimaev gets hurt, and therefore we bring in a whole nother guy to be a number one contender. I don't love that. I think there's something to be said for what's known as a survivor's clause. So if it's down to Chimaev and it's down to Kamaru and Chimaev wins and he can't go on, then it's Kamaru that goes on. And we have a history within the sport that supports that, right? If you guys followed back in 93, 94, 95, back when we had a tournament, it would actually work that way. You wouldn't find somebody that had done some really great things on a different night. You'd find somebody that was in the bracket that night. Now, I know I'm not going to win my way. I know I'm not going to get it. I don't even know how bullish I am to that concept. I just share with you that I think it should be observed. Like when Charles Oliveira got the nod to go into the fight that he does not want, which is a rematch with Islam, when Charles pulled out after giving himself the scratch above the eye, the rightful guy for that opportunity was not Volkanovski, it was Benny. Now, I'm just bringing this to you. You had Benny, who had won 8 in a row at that weight class and had a ranking. But instead, you went to a 45-pounder who had never won at that weight class and who had never had a ranking. Now, dwell on that all that you want. I'm just trying to come back to, if we get Izzy to take on the winner of Duplessis and Strickland, okay? that is going to be so red hot, whichever guy it is. But you still have to have an answer of what do you do with Chimaev. And even if we ice Chimaev, or even if we bring him on that card, or we make him a backup fighter, or we make him a future feature fight that night in case something happens and we can juxtapose and shuffle the card around. If those things don't happen, does he at least get to go next? Like, does becoming number one contender mean anything, or are these just words that we use? And before you answer that question, let's go back to 155 pounds, because we had Volkanovski, who was told, if you beat Rodriguez and Islam beats Charles and you guys still want to fight, we'll put you together. Okay, great. But that makes Volkanovski, who did beat Rodriguez, the number one contender at 155 pounds, except he didn't have a bout agreement. That was given to Charles Oliveira, except Justin Gaethje gets the BMF belt after he knocks out Dustin Poirier and says that he gets to fight for the championship next, of which nobody disagrees. That means you have 3 number one contenders. That doesn't work. And we're seeing the same thing at 170 pounds right now. Right now at 170 pounds, even Ray Charles could see that Belal Muhammad is the number one contender. And he had a fight of which a deal was made. If you win this fight, you become the number one contender. But now that it's freed up and Leon is available, we've heard a lot of things as it pertains to Belal Muhammad and Leon, none of which are they are going to fight for the title next. And I just wish if there's something that as we move forward in 2024 that we're a little bit more careful with, I wish that we would not stack up number one contenders. That's what I wish. I would love if we had clarity on 2 different things. First off, what is it to be a number one contender? What do you have to do and what comes with it? What do you get with that? And I think we've got some pretty good answers, by the way. I wish they were just stated. For example, Du Plessis, when he becomes the number one contender, when they offered him the fight against Izzy and he said no, that debt is now paid. I think that's the way it is. And I think if it was just stated, there wouldn't be hard feelings and there wouldn't be confusion. I would also offer that we give a little bit more clarity into the interim championship. How long can you be interim champion? How long can you be undisputed champion in the closet for any reason whatsoever, before that belt comes off you? And is it an unestablished amount of time? And if you have an undisputed champion and you have an interim champion and they're both back and they're both healthy and they're both competing at the same time, can that even happen? Because by definition, it cannot, but by history, it has happened before. I can't quite remember the threesome, but it was Randy Couture, Brock Lesnar, Frank Mir. There was something along these lines where there was an active champion and an active interim champion, which goes against the very definition of interim. I just wish that we did have a little bit of clarity on that. I do hope that we don't revisit it. I don't think that it's right to a guy like Belal Muhammad to believe that I'm next. All I have to do is wait. It takes a massive amount of patience to wait, right? Like we only talk about this side of the story, that it holds up a division and that you're unwilling and don't wait and good things don't pay off. We only talk about that side, but there is another side that has to do with perseverance, that has to do with patience, that has to do with I already earned something and why take a greater risk. I mean, it's an interesting spot. If you were to look at what Michael Chandler, who electively has been unemployed for well over the year, but what he was trying to get, which was something that he had earned. Like, there is 2 different ways to look at it. And it would be easier for us to look at it. Because look, I'm like you. I'm no different. I love to look down my nose at somebody else and act as though I have the right answers. I enjoy doing that. But to do that and do it with a level of confidence, there are certain terms in our sport that are very common colloquialisms that we do need to assign official definitions to. Let's start with number one contender. And let's start with the fact that you can't have 2 at the same time. And then let's move on to interim champion. And let's understand that we cannot have an active champion and an active interim champion. Not at the same time. Your move.